welcome to the B Team Podcast. I am your host, Josh Safran, with my co-host,
Matt Mars,
and our permanent guest,
Rob Nelson.
We're here every week to talk to you about all things Bentonville, bourbon, and business. The B Team Podcast. Be here. Welcome to the B Team Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Safran, with my co-host,
Matt Mars,
and our permanent guest.
Hey, I made it today, Rob Nelson.
I was like, the texts were blowing up this morning. I thought you were in Guatemala, Peru.
We can't have a text thread without busting each other's balls. So
I really thought he was in Miami.
Well,
I was excited.
I think he just likes the drama. I think he was sitting at home on his couch.
When did your flight land?
At about 10:20
yesterday.
Today.
Oh, so you've been home all day.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt and I
let to go work.
Yeah, we're not sure if you work. I mean, but that's a whole other podcast. Yeah. But Matt and I were trying to find a bunch of other people to come in, and then you stroll in. We're like, oh, Bobby's here.
Somebody had to bring the bourbon glasses.
I actually brought some just in case.
I love it.
Well, we're here every Thursday for all things Bentonville business and bourbon, and today we have Kaleb in, the jiu-jitsu, karate, MMA.
Authority at Northwest Arkansas.
The guy, it's called the Inferno, yes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's the Inferno, but, Inferno Martial Arts.
Inferno Martial Arts.
Yeah. It can be, the Inferno, depending on what day you show up and how our practice is. So definitely.
And where are you located?
We actually have 5 locations. So we're in Bentonville, Bella Vista, Springdale, and then Siloam and Rogers.
Five. One more time.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So we got Bentonville, which is the main headquarters.
And where's that at?
It's on 102.
Okay.
It's over on 14th Street.
Right across from the new home office. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. And then we also have one in Rogers that's over by Casanos on Pleasant Grove.
Okay.
And then we got one in Springdale. It's right off exit 72. It's back up in the shopping center.
That's awesome.
And, we got Bella Vista and Silent Spring.
And they're all yours?
I created an ownership group about a year ago. Because a lot of my senior instructors, a lot of guys that Matt knows, we kind of came together as a group, and we started expanding it. We kind of brought them into it. So now we have an owners group that kind of owns all of them. And so that way it's a bigger idea than just one guy.
We have a lot of Bella Vista followers. Where Bella Vista is.
Oh, we're right next to Harps.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's actually, if they're going to go to Bella Vista, they better go quickly because, Bella Vista was way more popular than I expected.
Yeah.
Well, the old people have to know how to self-protect.
They got to go jack some fools up. So judo chops.
If you haven't noticed lately, the demographic has changed in Bella Vista.
It has. It definitely.
It's no longer 16 up. It's what, 15 up?
I would say it's probably even lower than that.
Really?
Well, I don't know. The people that have been, our youth program blew up so fast. Yeah. We opened it barely a year ago, and within 2 months, classes were full with the kids especially.
That's awesome.
But there's also not a lot of stuff in Bella Vista to do as a family because there's a real estate problem up there. There's not a lot of commercial space. There's nowhere to go. Like, it took us forever to find a location, and then luckily that spot next to Harps opened up, and it was a fiasco. So, but now I see why.
Yeah.
And Matt trains with you?
Oh, he was my head coach for so many.
The kids, or how do you know Matt?
Yeah. So Matt has had the kids in the program for a long time, and so they grew up with our program there in Bentonville, and so you get to be buddies and hanging out and beating your kids up. It's a good time. So,
it's a good. And I know everyone knows this, but it's a good place for your kids to grow up because it's like you said, it's a family. It's a family event that you go to. And it's a lot of work for the parents, as all these sports are. But the girls, they learn not to be like. I think for a dad, it's a big deal because they learn that if someone tries to pin them down, like most of the things they teach are how to get away from someone at that level. So I don't know. We thought it was a great program. We were just glad to have you come on.
Oh yeah, no, I miss the girls because those Mars kids, they're good kids. And when it came time to go, they had no problem hitting the gas because as the kids go through the belts, there's a progression. And so at the lower belts, it's a little bit lower key, and you do the drill and you show the things. But when you kind of get up in the advanced ranks, when you've been there 5 or 6 years, it gets a little bit more saucy. And that's one thing that, the Mars girls, boy, when it was time to get saucy, they were down.
Now, do you carry this? Did Carrie do any of this training? Yeah. I could see her just throwing some elbow smashes.
Yeah. She was a sideline coach, just keeping her wrinkles.
I tried to get involved because, I'm thrifty. I'm going to say thrifty and cheap. And I know you know about this. So I they have these, was it collie sticks that they're called? I know he knows because he probably has a picture he tells. So, yeah, they have to buy these. They get to a certain level and they have weapons that they practice with. And I was like, oh, I could make one of these out of some stick from some closet
and then sell them.
So I made each of the kids on. Caleb came over after practice. He's like, Matt, they're going to get splinters. Everyone's going to get splinters in their hands from these.
And how much are these rounds? Like $8 each?
Literally $8.
Is that today's price? Or
That's today's price.
So which means it was like
$4.
He was like, yeah. And I know Carrie and the girls were just like trying to look the other way. And I was like, I made those for you.
There is some logic of like the splinters are not like inconvenient splinters, like, oh, I got one in my hand. Like, so a collie stick is made out of rattan, which is a fibrous wood. It's very flexible. It will not break. So when you're swinging sticks at each other, whacking sticks, and you hit one that's a piece of hardwood, that 8 or 12-inch piece will break off that stick and fly across the room and stick in somebody's eye socket. Like it's so incredibly dangerous. And I know this because when we were younger and we were broke kids back in Clarksville, me and my buddy Mike, from the gym, we were like, oh man, no, we can mix some of these. And that lasted about.
So Caleb, walk me through when you go over to Matt. Is it like, hey, jackass? Or is it like,
I felt like I was getting in trouble. He's like, did you come to my office?
It was great minds think alike. It was one of those like, hey man, I know you think this is a good idea,
but it's
really bad.
I'm trying to keep it low key because it's like, I get it, man. Like, because like I said, me and Mike put the same stuff.
But even better, I was hoping you'd say they're like $5,000 each, like custom made, shipped in from Taiwan. So it's $8.
No, it's $8. Yeah, literally $8. But I appreciated his effort. That I was like, now granted, I'm like, if you keep one of those, they're great to have in the car. So when you do break it and it's pokey, then it's functional. But in the gym,
it's amazing. It's such a good story.
Less than a thing.
Is that a surprise?
No, there's no surprise.
No.
Zero.
And he probably had to sell them too for $12 on top of it to make profit.
He was like, I can supply these.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so what? Lacquered, painted, all customized out, wood trimmed it. But yeah, that was
I didn't know if you remembered that.
Oh, I got it. Well, there's a few of those. But from Marsh specifically, because it's like, dude, it's $8, man. Like, I got you if it's not. Like, it is, you're in trouble. I got you. Don't worry. Like, we're good.
Don't let him fool you.
Yeah. Don't let him fool you. Believe me, don't let him fool you. So, like, of all of the different services that you offer in different classes, like, walk us through the different things that you can teach folks.
So we do different age groups, first of all. So like we do ages 3 and 4 at a couple of locations, because that's like herding cats,
3 and 4, some patients.
Yeah. We line them up and, left from right, getting straight lines. But we just start teaching the kids how to play with each other and with an instructor to do martial arts, which is kind of fun, So there's not any contact, nothing like that. Just so that way when they hit ages 5 through 7, because that's a different age group called our little ninjas, we change the curriculum a little bit. So then now they're familiar, and so they learn a little bit more, do a little bit more of the jiu-jitsu and a little bit more of the kickboxing partners. And then our 8 to 12-year-old group, they graduate into the warrior group. So the curriculum changes again, and then a teenager program. So it kind of progresses through the ages for the kids. And with the adults, we split it basically up into striking and grappling. So they can do kickboxing classes, or they can do jiu-jitsu, or they can do both. And then we got some of the young athletes that, want MMA fighters that want to go to the UFC, things of that nature. And so those guys are kind of doing, that program of blending everything together and do fight team practices. But most everybody is like, they want to learn some self-defense. They want to have a good time, something functional, get in shape, community, camaraderie. It's kind of, like you're saying, it's a big family kind of event. But it's also, legitimate martial arts where it's like, it's stuff that if something happens, you're probably going to be okay. It's like you can never predict all the wild cards, but it's definitely, something that's functional, especially for the kids. Is, the kids program, because now like jiu-jitsu is like the fad right now. Everybody's in jiu-jitsu. It's like, that's the thing. But we teach our kids striking as well, because I'm just a big believer in like your first priority of teaching children is self-defense. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, dude, if somebody stuffs your kid in the van, you don't need them trying to be like, well, here, get in my guard so I can try and do this choke I learned in class. Like they need to know how to punch, kick, lean, elbow, takedown, jump on people, choke people, swing sticks, that's
to where it's not like a foreign, and it's like you said, it's kind of like becomes muscle memory because the kids get frustrated. They're like, why do we have to keep doing all this? And he's like, because I want you to be able to do it without thinking that you're doing it.
Yeah, reactionary. Yeah. I mean, because like the weapons program in the martial arts world, it's like, oh, you're teaching weapons. It's kind of dumb. And it's like, well, we teach specific weapons because I don't want to teach the kids how to do things that are too extremely violent, too young. But there's transitive properties where like the kids get to swing nunchucks. They love nunchucks. I mean, who didn't when you were a kid? You're like, oh, this is awesome. I whack myself in the head. Like,
did you make nunchucks too?
I didn't. I snake them, but I probably
did. But it's a fun time. But at the same time, it's like that transitive property of like, if that kid picks up a bicycle chain or a bicycle lock, it's going to work the same way. And they can get somebody off them if they have to, or like the big long bow staff, like they pick up a broomstick or a rake or something, so like there's some underlining meanings in the program that the kids and also the parents don't even know about because, freaks them out. They're like, no, stab them in the eye. They're like, oh, that's easy.
But how do you prevent the kids from then going back to school and then beating the crap out of somebody, and then all of a sudden it comes back to you like, hey, you taught him this. Like, you're to blame in some way, shape, or form.
Structure and discipline. And that's happened. And 100% of the time, whenever that's happened, it's been a situation in which, our kid was just protecting themselves or somebody else, because they're good kids. Very rarely do you have a situation of like, oh, this kid's just out there harassing people. It's just because that structure and discipline in the program for those kids to learn the things that can do harm of that nature, they got to be in the program for a little bit. So a little bit of a slow start, but it's structure and discipline. It's the environment, the culture, of like, you're a protector of yourself and those that need help,
right.
And I tell people all the time when kids come in, oh man, my kid's getting bullied. But sometimes like the bully comes in and you need those kids too, because they just don't understand how to regulate.
That comes into like some respect as well too, right?
Absolutely.
You teach a lot of respect in martial arts.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's straight lines, yes sirs, no sirs, because what we're doing can inherently, hurt people, so we run a structure, but it's always a good time. We disguise it very well. And that's why like the culmination is like Matt could tell you, like the advanced rank testings is like what everybody loves to go to, because we do them different by rank. So like the high ranks, when they do a testing, only those belt colors go to that testing because it's just a different level of intensity than like, oh, my kid's a white belt, they just started, or they're a yellow belt, they're 6 months in. That's a different kind of testing.
How high did the girls get in the ratings?
They got those junior black belts.
Yeah. We
all of them? So they could put a whooping on you?
Yeah.
Well, and like I say, I mean, Kaleb, I think the best sell for us was that most people win, and if, hopefully it never happens, but whenever someone tries to pin them down or whatever, they freeze because they've never had it happen. Whereas when they're at these, it happens every three times a week.
Yeah.
So it like it's normal to them. Whereas, so that was what, like, as a dad, that's why I wanted the girls to go there, because then I was like, if anything ever happens, they probably let it happen or tried.
Yeah.
So knowing your thriftiness, I could see at home, all right, Carrie, I want to get a good return on investment. I'm going to put on a mask. Yeah, I'm going to come in the front door and let's see if and Kaleb, they didn't do what they were supposed to do. I want a refund.
I would get a call. I can tell you, man, the Mars girls, I definitely have no concern. Like, because, every kid has predispositions, where like you got your softer kids, you have your aggressive kids and things of that nature. And the Mars girls, when it came time to get down to business, like, especially now, like, dude, it was time to spar and like,
she likes that.
She would just be like, you don't want the kids to hurt each other, but it does get a little intense. It's contact sport. So when you have another kid that's at similar level that can handle the pressure, the kids know that they can kind of go a little harder. And one time, Mal was in class, she came over and she's like, Coach, is it okay if I make him cry? And I was like, absolutely. Because, it was because these kids, to them, like it can get very serious and, but when it's appropriate, they can kind of get after it to that level, and when you see that come out of kids, it's fun because it's controlled. because they know when and where. Because, you go with a younger kid or somebody that's not as good, they tone it down. But there's times where you kind of let them off the chain a little bit.
Yeah.
And they have like, they have all kinds of padding. It's not like they just.
But if you get kicked the right way, it's still gonna hurt.
Yeah, but in all seriousness for you though, you have a daughter that's 1,000 miles away in college, in a sorority. Like, hey, I feel good that she's going to be okay when I'm not around.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I mean, she would, kid ain't joking. But somebody unconscious probably take their wallet, because I always joke with them. I'm all like, hey, self-defense, when they go unconscious, take their wallet, see if there's money in there. It's fair trade. But yeah, it just, because I mean, that's the power of like the jiu-jitsu part, is like learning how to, choke somebody or, bend their joint the wrong way. It's just the power of being able to put somebody unconscious regardless of size.
Well, we're going to have you demonstrate a couple of holds on Bobby.
I feel like as
that made his dude. It's still on his neck his whole life. So it's like, yeah, he's been choking.
But like a lot of dads would do the pro. We didn't ever do it probably because I'm lazy, but we were busy and we didn't do it. But a lot of dads.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of parents
do
train. And it's always funny. So
do they train with their kids, or it has to be in a separate class?
We always separate, but like we do like an open mat on weekends. So like they'll bring the kids in and they'll goof off a little bit. But it's like siblings. So what parents usually learn is when you do something legit like this, training together is kind of cute for a minute, but then it you don't want the siblings training together, and sometimes you don't want to be training with your kid because they jump on you and put the squeeze on. And but yeah, so like they'll train together a little bit on the weekends sometimes. The classes are separate, but the funny thing is that, so every time I have a parent that starts training, they always apologize to the kid. Because, parents on the sideline, hey, you need to do better. You need to get down the mat. You need to do this. You need to just do what you're told. Like, come on, do better. Every single time the parents start training, they're like, hey, buddy, stop. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's actually a little harder for us. Every time.
I feel like you could reach across the table and snap the phone out of Bobby's hand when he's being rude and doing text in the middle. I feel like you could do that.
So number one, the camera wasn't on me.
I just didn't know if
She pointed it
off screen.
The camera's always watching.
Yeah.
Well, Matt and I were noticing.
So he'll edit it anyways.
I'm gonna edit. I'm gonna have that as the lead right now. I have the camera on you.
That's fine.
It's all like, hey, only if I do something violent, you go.
We do want to see though a move on a route, at least like a beginner's move or
We
something.
can do a beginner's move.
Beginner's
Yeah,
move.
yeah. The last move we did, like I said, goes unconscious, hits his head. It was a thing, but yeah. So,
I've done that before.
safety first.
There's no size on that chair.
I will warn you.
Yeah.
I do have some training.
Oh,
I trained for many, many years.
okay. Deadly man.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
So, how did you get into this? Did you do this all growing up?
I grew up doing this as a kid. My dad was a martial artist, and it was one of those deals where like he kind of learned by the third kid that don't push it on him. So he was always kind of the takeaway. So getting him to train was always really difficult, and so it made me hungry for it. And so he put me in some classes when I was little. Funny story about the first class that I do. So fighting dad to make him train me. I'm like maybe 6 or 7, maybe. Little guy. I go to a full karate class, and I'm like finally have arrived. So I get on my karate uniform, got my white belt on. I'm ready to be like, man, I've been a ninja. I knew what I'm doing because dad had showed me some stuff. And so we go to this class. We're doing some things. We do some kind of partner drill. Well, the one thing that dad had taught me was moon, elbow, headbutt. So that is legitimately what I had learned up to this point.
Hit somebody in the knee?
No, you knee them with your knee.
Yeah, okay.
Then you hit them with an elbow, and then you headbutt them.
Like, you're how old at this point?
I'm like maybe 6. Maybe 6. And so I'm in this karate class, and a kid's karate class is pretty chill, because you don't want the kids to hurt each other and stuff like that. And we do some kind of partner drill, and without missing a beat, I am just like, knee, elbow, headbutt. And that did not go well. And I was in so much trouble, and I couldn't figure out why, because I was like, I'm doing martial arts. Like, I just did karate. I'm in a karate class. I don't understand the problem. So I am just confused. I'm all get out. And they
pull you out of the drill. Or
I just saw like I'm doing push-ups, And I'm just like, why am I doing push-ups for doing karate? Awesome. Because I'm like, I did a great job. And so that was a learning experience. It was hard to figure out the difference, but I just stayed in it. Always had a passion for it. And when I got older, graduated high school, went to college. Actually had a chest surgery when I was a teenager. So like right when I graduated, I'd had this massive chest surgery. And I was doing martial arts, running to school, racing cars, doing cool stuff, not realizing how serious this was. And then it's like, boom, you sit in a chair, you can't talk, you can't move. You're not supposed to ride the car for a year. You're not going to be out of this thing for a month minimum. Wow. So it was a very big culture change. So out of desperation and boredom, I went to college because I was going to go military my whole life. I was like, oh no, man, I'm a ninja, training all the time. I'm doing all the karate stuff, doing martial arts. I was going to go military. Well, ironically, recruiters will tell you things that sometimes are not always accurate. So since I was like 15 years old, every recruiter I'd ever talked to was like, oh man, no, we're going to put you in, like, they'll take care of this. You're going to be able to go to college. And I knew the surgery thing was coming. I'm like, oh no, we'll do surgery. Like all these things that a teenager talking to a recruiter at like a festival, definitely not asking the right questions. So I'm under the impression, I'm like, oh, I'm going to the military, it's going to be awesome. So find out, surgery, you don't get to go in the military. So I ended up going to college out of just pure boredom because I just could not stand sitting in the house any longer. So go to college, doing rehab, trying to get back to doing martial arts, get a real corporate job, doing all the things, making a bunch of money, VP at like 23, crazy stuff going on to that. And then one day I'm just sitting in my office and I was like, this sucks. Quit. Walked into my boss's office and I said, hey man, I'm going to the gym full time. Like I don't want to do this anymore. He's like, well, do you need more money? I was like, honestly, no. I don't even know what to do with the money I'm making right now because, I'm a kid. Like, I bought hot rods and cool stereo speakers. It was like, that was it. And so I went to the gym full time and just leaned in and ended up moving to Bentonville in 08 and opened up the gym and just kept growing and growing. And so it's
really been open that long?
Yeah. It's a great program.
Yeah, we started Inferno in 03 in a tool shed.
Oh, wow.
Where I came from. Because me and friends had trained at other martial arts schools, and it was always some kind of drama, politics. They'd go out of business. This instructor hated that instructor. It was always something stupid. And so I showed up to teach class. The doors are locked. Can't figure out what's going on. I ended up calling the landlord, and she's like, yeah, they ain't paid me rent in about a year. And I was like, wait, what? Because I was collecting money, putting it in this drawer. Because this is a rinky-dink small operation. We're talking Clarksville, Arkansas. This is nothing serious. And so I'm just like, what? So me and my buddy Mike, we were like, man. So I trained for my first Muay Thai fight on his carport. Because that's what we had. Wow. And which I lost, by the way. Yeah, I got DQ'd because it's apparently throwing elbows and amateur. Muay Thai is not legal. I didn't even know. I was just like, I knocked him down. Once again, I'm a 6-year-old in karate class, not understanding what else.
You need some counseling, some therapy.
Yeah, I thought I did good. No, elbows are not legal. Didn't read the rules. Didn't know anything. Showed up to fight, but it was a good time.
Caleb, let me ask you a couple questions.
Give me.
Safe to say if somebody walks up behind you in a parking lot, not a good move for the person, right? I mean, you like one or two moves and... Yeah,
I mean, theoretically, we all want to say that. Like, that's what you sell, you propagate. Reality is anything can happen. So, because in the real world, like when you get ambushed, multiple opponents, people hit you in the head with a brick.
Nothing you can do there.
Or stab you in the kidney. Like, like most knife fights, like 80% of knife fights, people don't know they're in a knife fight till after. They didn't know they were stabbed. So do I have a skill set that technically should protect me more than anyone else, on average? Technically, yes.
So what is that move? If Bobby and I are walking out to my car after this and somebody comes up behind us, like what are the first two things you tell somebody to do as best as they can?
I always tell people hips towards danger. Turn your hips towards the danger no matter what, because you don't want people behind you. You want stuff in front of you. That's where you're strong. That's where you can get a hold of people. That's where you can hit people. Right there. Hips towards danger.
You're squared, though.
Well,
that means it's easier to knock you over.
So that's my first thing. Hips towards danger. And then after that, it's easy. Eyes, throat, and ears.
Go for the eyes. Go for the throat. Not groin?
Groin, I use as an adjustment to get to your eyes and throat because, like, most people that are attacking you aren't wired roughing it anyway. A lot of times they're on drugs or off drugs. So a pain response such as a groin strike, is not always the best. And I mean, it'll work. It's like it's going to slow them down. But my goal is like, what turns somebody off? If you're blind and can't see me, it's hard to hurt me. If you can't,
So are you finger or out like to the eye?
I'm a thumb in the eye.
Thumb in the eye.
I'm
Okay.
all about thumbs in the eye because
Interesting.
I can hit you with my palm at the same time my thumb goes in your eye, so you get a little bit of a jaw strike. So it's almost like a slap, but a little bit more of a palm heel strike, here. So I get a little bit of that rattle on the jaw as my thumb finds your eye.
Sounds so loud.
Oh, yeah. Skip on that. And while that's happening,
Don't use that on mentally.
No, she should use it on me. That's the problem.
yeah, and trying to get hold of the throat, like while you're doing that,
Just like this coming in.
Yeah. Well, so I always joke because I'm all like, don't choke like this. This is for fun. Choke like this because this is for real.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you want to get a hold of that trachea. I always tell them people it's like getting a hold of a water hose and just close it. Like that's your goal. Because when I do that, I get your attention. Because when people are going to harm you, they usually want to get close to you. So I'm like, I'm really get close. So you get a hold of their throat, they're going to get a hold of it, and then their eyes open. So when their eyes open,
Boom, the thumb right in the eye.
and I go
Oh, it's like a tag team.
as deep as it'll go.
So-
And then, of course, it's, one is none, two is one. So it's like after you get that first one in, then your goal is to get the second one in, because you want to be thorough, where it's like we're going to make sure. And I always tell people the groin strike, that's what I use to help get your head closer, like so if they are close and they're a little bit taller or something, you strike the groin because people bend the waist and so they don't get all of your head.
I'm like, I don't know if I'm scared or excited. I don't know what's happening.
Everything Josh.
Like,
Yeah, it's kind of a mix.
let's go outside.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix, like, fear and excitement kind of a blend. But yeah, so that's what I advise people to do but then you got to look at force multipliers where it's like if somebody actually means you harm and you're carrying a firearm or a knife of some sort, then you have to employ that. But as my coach always says, defend yourself physically and legally, because the legal environment is also a major factor that you have to put in context because, social justice is so strong now, or you could do something that's legally vetted, but still the world may torture you, end your life and your career, and it's over. So you always have to be thinking in that context. But, the old adage, you'd rather be carried by six and tried by
That's
12,
right.
or it's just like, well, like whatever you choose to go down that route of like, well, I want to survive and I will let people judge my actions versus like, I got to be put, so
That's smart.
yeah. So, I mean, that's a factor too, because
Because wasn't there just a case in New York where somebody on a subway where a guy, right, somebody was out of control and the guy grabbed him in a chokehold and
Yes.
killed him
yes,
and went to trial and he got off because he was defending, but that's scary stuff, right?
it really is. Cause like I know of a guy that was a jiu-jitsu guy. Wasn't the best guy, but he was a jiu-jitsu guy and he was working security at some event and he snatched a guy up and choked him unconscious and killed that guy. But like a dummy, he decides to conceal it. So he walks off and then tries to come back because, he's figuring out what's happening, comes back, calls it in. Oh, this guy jumped on me. Then he started changing the story. Oh, I had to choke him. Something happened. This is the world of film.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
no,
And being trained, it's even worse.
when you're trained,
It's like
It is-
carrying a gun.
it's more difficult through social justice, like, and you can't tell me that it doesn't influence a jury when this is what you've been doing for your whole life. Is they're just like, well, I don't know, because they don't know, it's
Yeah.
like, if I tell Matt, hey man, I'm going to go frame this house, dude, I'll have it done by Monday. Why not? No big deal. He's going to laugh and be like, oh my God, good.
Isn't it to the point where like it better not be a bar fight?
Correct.
It better be you're really truly in fear for your life, and that's one of the things you got to be really careful on.
Well, and what I think people are finally figuring out is they got to stop fighting people for fun. Like there's an avenue for that. You can go to jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yeah.
You can go to MMA fights.
Yeah. Can sign up with you.
Yeah. I mean, we can do that right now. Let's go to the gym. We'll jump in the cage. Like there's an avenue to do it. So the bar fight scenario, the tough guy in the restaurant, people are starting to figure out like that is not the way to,
Tough to in this.
Is that why you had to get out of it? Like you're
No, not at all.
Too
No,
dead.
no.
Too dead.
I was too definitely.
Too dead. They're like, man, we've run out of stripes on your belt.
I was actually able to touch my toes at one point. I was actually flexible.
Bruce Lee, Rob Nelson, put him in the same category.
Yeah, I told Ange a few weeks ago that I want to, start training again. And
Did she laugh?
You really did? You really did?
yeah, I really did. I swear to you, this is a true story. And she goes, "You realize you're in your 40s now. It's not like back when you were doing it when you were in your 20s." I was like, "Oh no, I wasn't in my 20s." And she was like, "Look, you were in your 20s."
Well, no.
I mean, you say that, and there's people that are
Oh yeah.
Well,
older
ironically,
than all of
Oh,
us.
100%. It's great exercise,
ironically,
flexibility,
jiu-jitsu,
all that stuff, right?
it's starting to attract older people. So like our jiu-jitsu class, like my day class, I call it the master's class, executives, because it's always on guys. Because it's like everybody's in their 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yes.
And so jiu-jitsu, because of the way that it works and the way you train, it's not as impact oriented. A lot of people are doing that much later in life. Like my coach has a guy that trains with him that's 89 years old. And we took him to Brazil, and we're taking him back to Brazil this summer. And it's an amazing story. Like the news came down, did a story with him, because
89.
it's like, man, you're 89 doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So you can still do that. Now, kickboxing, boxing, MMA, that's a little bit different. Like you can hit pads forever, but other people hitting you in the skull, that definitely has an expiration date on it.
Yeah.
And how does pricing work? Is it a monthly charge? Is it per class? Is it a la carte?
Kind of depends on the program. Like the pricing depends on which program you want to do, how often you want to do it, So
Well, what's the thriftiest option?
the thriftiest option is all like,
Was it a month? or
watch
year?
YouTube.
That was-
Yeah.
Watch YouTube, go in the backyard.
Carrie doesn't tell. Carrie never told me what anything cost.
Yeah, she's smart. You're talking like 125, 160 a month, something like that. So I mean, it's
And what does that get?
that gets you a couple classes a week. Up to 4 classes. Affordable.
It's a deal.
Oh yeah.
And how many people in a class?
Depends on what class. And sometimes you'll be in a class with 6 people. Sometimes you'll be in a class of 40.
Oh, wow.
It just kind of depends on the day, what the event is. And honestly, having so many different locations is really been beneficial because some people don't like big classes. And they're like, man, so they'll go in the smaller gyms, so it's small classes. But then you have other people, they like the big classes because all the training partners. They're like, oh man, I'm going to train everybody. So they'll go to, like, because Bentonville's usually the bigger classes, so they'll go there. So you kind of have this different choice that you can play. And then also just when you want to go somewhere different, when you're like, hey, I'll just drive to Springdale, and you're with a bunch of different people you've never trained with, but you're in an environment where you're all like, I can still do what I know I'm supposed to do, but with different people, so it's a little bit more competitive. And then whenever people do that a little bit, they're like, you know what, I'll go do a tournament. So they'll go try a jiu-jitsu tournament or something like that. So it's has a different, blend for people.
Oh, it's cool. Like we would watch when the kids were little, the real, like he had a few like
Oh, yeah,
real like fighters.
Yeah, Kench Wright.
And like he wants this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh boy.
We actually have one of our guys has a title fight coming up. He's getting ready for it. That's going to be in Oklahoma, and he's about to go to Portland for a week for a training camp with my friends. He trains a bunch of UFC guys, and he's one of the best coaches in the world and the greatest human being, And so I try to send my guys up there to do a training camp just to get a different look and a different influence, and because the pressure's on you. You go somewhere else, you're repping your team. All these guys are fighters, and some of them are big name fighters, and it just helps push that line a little bit. And it's a guy that I trust, and I know he's going to take care of me.
What's it going to take for you to get back in, Bobby? This is exciting. We're breaking news on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't know about this.
If you guys sign up, I'll sign up. We'll go together.
I could do a trop. I don't know how much I can do with my knee right now.
Yeah, we'll go easy.
Yeah, I got a torn meniscus and ACL I'm recovering.
I mean, that's actually pretty common.
I do like the crane move, like
Yeah.
You're gonna hurt yourself.
they just pull a hammy.
Yeah.
The other knee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this not.
Yeah,
Not
it looks like I'm gonna have all you guys starring at my house. I need to redo the fit.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna do this car.
Paint the fence, wax on, wax off.
I do not.
I mean, that's all legitimate. That's all legitimate, right? I mean, that has to be the first week.
That's 100% accurate. You guys come out and you build this fence in my house, then we'll let you in the gym. But yeah, training around injuries is definitely something everybody has to do. Like right now, like pulling my phone out of my back pocket, like my shoulder clicks every time. So you just have to, you work around it. And that's where our environment is really helpful because it's a train with people instead of train against people. Because there's times where it's like, hey, man, we're gonna get serious today, and I'm gonna do jiu-jitsu to you. But most of the time, it's like I'm gonna do some jiu-jitsu with you. So it's definitely changed and evolved. And I mean, because we were the fight club, goofball doofuses in a tool shed that was like, oh, you want to train here? Put on some gloves. Let's fight each other right now. That's legitimately where we started.
That's something.
I can remember being the sign the waiver guy because I was so dumb. And it's just a miracle that nobody legit showed up. Because I can remember when I went and trained with my current coach, when I first got to go cross train with these guys, they were actually talented, and I was like, oh, these guys really know what they're doing. I'm just a goofball in a small town trying to watch VHS tapes to get better.
That's good.
So it was, awesome. Yeah, it was silly. And I can remember a friend of mine introduced me to these guys. This is the sign the waiver guy. My first thought was like, these guys are going to beat me up right now in front of everybody, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Can you give us there's got to be like a story that you guys do behind the scenes? Like, you can't believe this happened today. Like, there's got to be something like this person came in and whatever. You got something funny for the audience?
Oh, man, the number of stories. Like, here's a funny one. So when you sit at the gym long enough, big glass windows, people walk in, and you get to where you kind of can see what's coming, and you're all like, so me and my buddy Mike, we've been doing this for almost 25 years together. And so whenever interesting ones are coming in, it becomes who has to deal with it.
One of you coming back.
Yeah, we're really like, so if you spot them first, you're like, oh, I got to
I'm out.
And a funny one that came, so this car pulls up, 1990 Caprice.
Oh boy.
4-door. Primered black. Not black. Primered black. Has a Batman logo painted on the hood. No lie. Batman logo painted on the hood. And I'm just like, but there's those guys that's
the Batmobile.
You know those things when the cars run into each other? Demolition.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, and I'm a car guy. I'm like, well, I can buy it. Like maybe it's just that's what it's going to
be. You haven't decided to pick your foot up. You're like, let's see where this goes.
I'm intrigued. Guy walks in, mohawk, all tatted up. We're all like, looks tough. You're like, man, this be a tough guy.
Yeah.
And, he starts talking to me, but he's a fighter. And I was like, oh, which I hear that a lot. I'm a fighter. That's everybody in the industry, you hear that a lot. But it sounded like it was almost legit. Whereas all like, oh, so you've trained before. Like he'd done some stuff. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's awesome. Like, well, what's your name? Dragon. And I was like, oh, okay.
You're looking for the camera.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's punking me right now.
Dragon with the Batman on the car, the tats, and the mohawk.
And I was like, but you know what? Like, so when you get into the fight game, there is a level in which it turns into entertainment. That does exist. Because I try to be, open-minded where you're like, hey, man, never know. I mean, like, when you make it at the large level, like, you got to kind of play the game. You're in the entertainment business, no longer in the martial arts business. So I didn't think it was probably that, but it's like, maybe this guy, you watch the internet, like, this is what other people are doing. You buy into that sometimes. So I'm like, okay, we'll see. I was like, well, we have fight teams on this time and this time. And back then, fight team was pumping pretty solid, a lot of pros. And I was like, so if you came to a practice back then when this occurred, like, it was going to be a difficult practice. But this guy's trained. He's I thought he had some fights. Okay, all right, let's put you in.
Dragon got his ass whooped.
It was not a good day for the Dragon. And it wasn't even that we didn't even get to the part where you got to really punch each other. We didn't even get to that part.
You didn't get to knee, elbow, headbutt. We didn't get that far.
Didn't get that far in because like you start out with cardio. So we start out with cardio rounds, because to be in shape. So
shout out to Dragon.
Yeah. He was struggling. He was trying, as much as I make the jokes, he was trying. But it was not going well. Cause these are professional level athletes. These are guys that are putting in the work that want to make it. And so we get to the cardio, which was tough. And I'll give people a gimme because you could take me right now to a CrossFit gym and run me through something that would probably destroy me. But I guarantee you, if we get on the mat, I'll probably mop the floor with you, like that, because it's different types of muscle things. And I get that. So I'm really pretty easy on the cardio whenever people come in and it's like, hey, this is new, it's different.
We'd be okay then.
You guys would be fine. You guys would be fine.
Just calling you dragon.
Maybe the beginner class.
Yeah. So then we get into the drilling, which is a lot of wrestling and wall work and, specific stuff. So it's resistance training, but you're not punching and hitting each other. And that's whenever I was just able to see like, okay, this guy doesn't know what he thinks he knows, and it was
Poor dragon.
It was rough. It was rough.
Dragon was dragon.
He was dragging himself hard, man.
Buff the magic dragon.
Yeah, it was like he was waiting for that phone to ring, man.
You're like, there's always someone better out there, but it's everyone.
And then that pretty much was it, where it was like, he was cooked, and so he didn't get to do the sparring. And we are so past that to where there was a time in which it was all like, oh yeah, no, you want to be a fighter? Yeah, like those days are long gone. And so luckily he didn't make it to that part. But yeah, that was
Did he ever come back?
one time. I think he swung by, oh, well, I just been busy and, life got in the way and all that stuff. And, I was like, oh, yeah, no, man, it's all good. And just kind of floated off.
Love to know what dragon's up to now.
Yeah.
Man, honestly, he's probably the smart one. He probably has a legit job. He probably has health insurance. His shoulder probably doesn't click when he picks his cell phone out of his pocket. So, but also being a person that I went through that myself. Like when I found my coach, what I thought that I was doing, like when I was assigned the waiver guy and got introduced to those guys, I showed up for fight team at their place. So I was dragging. So
Everybody's been dragging.
everybody's been that guy. So I was that guy, and I showed up. And I walked into this very small school. Man, there was like the mats were packed, and I'm just like, hey, I guess everybody's decided to show up on a Saturday, And we jump rope for 20 minutes, man. I've never jumped rope 20 minutes in my life.
That's just,
I'm just like, what are we doing?
Just 20 minutes.
And then we started cardio, and I was like, what?
That didn't count as cardio?
The cardio?
it was just a
Yeah. And then we get into the grappling and sparring. Man, I got mopped. Oh my gosh, I was wrecked, but I loved every ounce of it because I was trying to get back. Like, this is what I was up for. But man, those guys were so good where I was at. And but then I showed up every Saturday. And I can remember it was a 2-hour drive. And when I would hit about Conway, dude, the adrenaline would start pumping, like I'd show up to practice and be like, I'm already kind of tired because I'm just, in my brain. And so when I see guys come in like that, like it is funny and you enjoy and you laugh, but like I've been the dragon. So like the thing is that what you do with it. It's like,
I've been the dragon.
I think all of us.
That's a new t-shirt. I've been the dragon.
I think just dragon.
Just dragon.
We all do dragon shirts and hats.
It's like, take the humility and then keep trying to get better. And that's the only time I kind of lose respect for people is like when there's a deficiency or like there's a struggle and you're not what you're supposed to be and you move away from that resistance. And that's really what our entire program is about, is teaching kids and adults how to move into a resistance or around it and not away from it.
Love it.
Because that's really what kind of drives society these days. Like, oh, if you're not awesome at something, don't do that. Because everybody's going to take videos and pictures and make fun of you.
That's true.
It's like,
Kaleb, it's website, Instagram page, Facebook page, address. Let's tell everybody how to find you.
Yeah, you just look up InfernoMMA.com, type in Inferno Martial Arts. We're very well known here, been around for a while. We got the Facebook page. We have an Instagram. We're not good at that stuff. So
join the crowd.
Yeah, call us. Send us a Facebook message, like Instagram messages. I'll find it 2 weeks later. I'm like, oh, my bad. Yeah, so we're working on that. But yeah.
What shop are you mostly at?
I'm usually at Bentonville.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm usually at Bentonville. And a lot of my time now is spent training a lot of law enforcement. So I work with most of the agencies in the area.
Smart man. Yeah, you'll never get a ticket.
You would think so. You would think so. That's not always correct, because it's like barely 45 overs.
When you're doing 130 and a 35, it's Kaleb from Inferno.
It's just 40 miles an hour.
Hey man, you see my license plate? Dragon?
Yeah, exactly. Didn't you see the back, like that?
I am the dragon.
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time doing that now, just because, those guys, they need more training. And the resources that are available are always a struggle. So we actually have a scholarship program for all the agencies where they can put a couple guys that get chosen through a process and they get to train. And, I can honestly say, because we've been working on this for the last 15 years. In the last 15 years, what the agencies have done to build in a better quality program and improve education for cops locally, like it has definitely changed drastically to where these guys are able to do a better job for themselves and people around them. Because, you know, people that don't know how to fight are the most dangerous person in a fight, really. There's another flailing, crazy, and punching and kicking.
But yes,
Yeah, it looks just like but whenever you kind of learn how to handle somebody, one, like the pressure goes down. So whenever you're dealing with somebody and they're getting amped up,
Stress.
you don't get amped up. So then you're calm in that kind of calm situation. And when it does get crazy and things break off, you're so much cooler and calmer. You just kind of get a hold of people, put them in a position where they can't move, can't hurt you or others. And so it's really been changing. So I'm really pleased with the direction law enforcement has been taking. And
it's amazing what out there. That's huge.
it's been difficult just because like those guys are so overworked with time constraints, and agencies are so dictated by so much bureaucracy. Like, well, here's all the P's and Q's, and got to do this, and got to do that. It honestly took me so long just to get involved to a degree to where it met all of their needs. Legal's comfortable, admin's comfortable. Like everybody sees the big picture of like, oh, this is working. But now it's yielding results. I mean, like even the number of lawsuits that agencies are facing right now have decreased so much over the last several years because cops are doing a better job. You know, I mean, still mistakes you make,
awesome.
things can get better, but it's
That's really
yeah. And as our area grows, it matters more to me because I'm like,
Yeah.
man, you know, like our kids are out there. Like this is important. We got to take care of this. So,
Well, thanks for coming in.
yeah, it was a fun
I
time.
was getting there for a session,
Yeah.
sparring
She
session.
didn't drink mid out yet, though.
Yeah, I know. It's like, well, like I said, he got $3
Yeah.
10 years. Like, he's got lots of practice. They've on it. Dad, check this new technique out there. You know? Yeah,
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
We need to do this again.
Yes, this was great.
for sure.
Thank you for coming in.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. That was awesome.